All right, we're back. Um, Treadmill Talks, second week. For those who don't know, thanks for tuning in. Last week, it's just me walking on a treadmill, talking football. Doing this is just a way to kind of talk football with you guys. Kind of work on the treadmill, kind of get me motivated to get on the treadmill, maybe lose a little weight, but talk football with you guys. So if you're tuning in, thanks for tuning in. Drop a comment, drop a like. I'll try to answer your questions, but yeah, just be here for 30, 40 minutes walking on the treadmill talking football. So last week we talked free agency. I thought this week maybe we talked draft and maybe some rookies. I've been working on mock drafts the past few weeks actually. I've released 2 versions on Twitter. My 3rd version will be coming out in article form hopefully next week. I finished that up yesterday. Not gonna lie, I spent a good chunk of yesterday, probably 8 hours doing it. When I look at mock drafts, what I look at is I try to look at everything and everything. So at each pick, I look at not only what that team is doing, but is there a reason to move back, and why would they move back for who? But also, who would move up? So, hey, this team might want to move back because there's not a great fit for them, but who's moving up? If there's not a great fit for that team, is there a great fit for another team moving up? So we'll see. So if you got questions, drop it in the comments there on YouTube. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm glad to answer any sit-start trade question. I guess not sit-start, but trade questions about rookies. So let's talk quarterbacks. I think at this point it's inevitable that we're going to see Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels in the top 3. I do think that someone trades up for J.J. McCarthy. I honestly think it's going to be the Vikings. I think that's no mystery that they traded with Houston to get 23. So now they'll own 11, 23, and 20. Or sorry, they own a couple picks, 11 and 23. So I think they use those to trade up to 4 or 5 to get J.J. McCarthy. I think it puts the Giants out. I never thought the Giants were a contender for a quarterback. Daniel Jones' dead cap is massive at this point. And I think Denver just doesn't have the draft assets to move up. They'd have to really mortgage a ton of the future to move up, which I think would be hinder them in terms of what they can do in the future and try to rebuild that team. They have some holes. Obviously, they need another receiver maybe after trading Jerry Jeudy. So I do think it's going to be Minnesota. Whether it's at 3, 4, or 5, I think probably 4 or 5. Then we're looking at Marvin Harrison, after that. But the quarterback-wise, then we're talking about Michael Penix. Is he the 5th quarterback off the board? Is he a first round, or does Denver target him in the first round? Denver's at 12. I think it's a huge reach for Denver to get Michael Penix there. Personally, I just don't see it. I like Michael Penix a lot, but I think 12 is a huge reach for him. Denver would either have to trade back and pick up some assets, a second rounder, which they don't currently have, maybe another future first in order to kind of maneuver some things to maybe get up and get Penix later on in the draft. So I tweeted this out yesterday. I'm picking up Jarrett Stidham, especially in Superflex leagues. He's probably on your waivers right now, or you can trade for him for a 4th-round pick. I think his value goes up to a 3rd-round pick in the season as we've seen injuries. Plus, if he's starting, he still has Cortland Sutton. People like Marvin Mims. I don't. Greg Dulcich, Javonte Williams. He should be a capable quarterback for fantasy. He's not going to be a game changer, but bye weeks, injuries happen. So I do think it's Minnesota getting J.J. McCarthy, and then we'll see what happens with Michael Penix. I think he's a 2nd-round pick. Doing my mocks, it's really hard for me to see a team move up back into the first round to get him. Again, cost to move up, it just isn't there. You're talking moving back from end of the 2nd round to the end of the 1st round. Not sure the value's there trade-wise, so we'll see. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Treadmill Talks, just me talking on the treadmill. We're going to talk rookies, so hit the like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you see I'm trying to do this every Sunday. Just motivation for me to get on the treadmill and talk football. But if you got comments, drop it in there. I'd love to answer your questions. After those 4, and then Michael Penix is 5, where do we see Bo Nix, who seems to be not getting any love right now? I think he's a 3rd or 4th-round pick. And then you got the other guys, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, Jordan Travis, who I think is a huge sleeper. They're probably going to go to decent teams. A Rams, who need someone behind Stafford for a year, they're probably going to sit for a year, but they need someone eventually. And who knows what happens with Stafford's health. Dallas is an interesting one. Both Dak Prescott and Trey Lance are free agents next year. Now they can pick up Trey Lance's 5th-year option. We'll see. Obviously, we know the Jets have Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what happens behind him after this year? So there's a lot of teams that need guys next year that could be looking at the Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix, Jordan Travis draft them in the third, fourth round, let them sit for a year, and then give them a chance to start next year. So that's the quarterbacks in the draft. Running backs. Listen, I know we've said the running back class is not great. It's not top-end talent. Doesn't have the Jahmyr Gibbs and the Bijans like last year. I think it's a good class. I don't think we see a ton go early. I think we see 2 to 4 in the second round. I don't think we see any in the first round, but I think the second round is where we can start seeing running backs go. It's really a toss-up who you like. Trey Benson's up there for me. I like Blake Corum. I like Braylon Allen. They're probably my top 3. You can talk about all these other guys, and that's the problem is you talk to these other people, look at draft assets, you ask for their top 5 running backs, and you're going to get 15 names if you talk to 3, 4, 5 different guys. So, again, I think we see 3 in the first round. I think we see some ones later in the draft who could have some fantasy impact. I interviewed Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire, good pass catching back. I think he could go if he goes to an interesting spot. Not a ton of supply and demand right now for running backs. So if you're looking at teams that need a running back, I think the Bills could use one as a pass catcher. Giants need a starter. Dallas needs a starter. I don't know where else there is. You could say maybe the Rams pick up one. They like Kyron Williams, but do they love Kyron Williams? We'll see. So not a ton of space for running backs to go. I think Zamir White's the starter for the Raiders, so that kind of limits the spot. I think Arizona drafts a guy maybe early-ish in the second or third round to go behind James Conner, who's getting up there, who had some health concerns. So then we're talking about wide receivers, and that's been the talk of this draft class. Wide receivers, very deep, a lot of depth there. Really good skill positions. Obviously, we start with Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think is really good. There's all this talk, is he the best prospect ever, generational talent? What does generational talent mean? Whatever. I think him and Malik Neighbors are both solid receivers. I think it's just a different scheme and fit for your team. I think Marvin Harrison plays more of a Stephon Diggs type where he kind of moves around a little bit, where I think Malik Neighbors is more of a tie-to-the-line type guy, big-name receiver, more of a Mike Evans who's not going to do a lot of motion, just kind of go out there and beat you. And then number 3, I have Rome Odunze, like most people. Curious to see where he goes in the draft, because when we start looking at the draft, I think we're going to see Neighbors and Harrison go in the top 10, if not the top 5. And then where does Rome Odunze fall? Where does he go? Is the gap between him and Neighbors bigger than the gap between Rome Odunze and my 4, which is Brian Thomas? I don't know. I think Brian Thomas and Rome Odunze could be closer than Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors when it comes to draft capital and where they actually fall in the draft. So we'll see. Like I said, Brian Thomas is my 4. Currently, I have all of them in my first round. And then at the end of the first round, it gets wonky for me for receivers. I think you have guys, Xavier Worthy, who has the speed, has a little skill, but a smaller guy. I think you have Troy Franklin could sneak in there. Keon Coleman could sneak in there. Ladd McConkey's there. Depends on what the team needs. So doing my mock drafts, I keep looking at, hey, does Baltimore need a receiver? Probably. But do they need a Xavier Worthy who's very similar to Zay Flowers? Probably not. Like maybe they want a bigger guy. So do they go for an Adonai Mitchell, a Keon Coleman, or a Troy Franklin who's a little bit of a taller guy, bigger receiver, can be more of that role for them? Possibly. Depends on what other teams do. So I think that's going to be interesting. Then tight end, it's Brock Bowers or bust for me, really. There's a couple interesting guys later. Landing spot really matters for me for tight end. Obviously, it's said over and over again, we want our tight ends to be 1 or 2 on the depth chart in terms of targets for a team. I think Brock Bowers has a chance to go there. I have an interesting landing spot for him in my version 3 mock draft, a different landing spot than I've had anywhere else. So I don't think I've seen it talked about him going there. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, my version 3 article will be dropping on dynastybrosfootball.com probably next week or end of this week coming up. Right around Easter, I think we'll drop it. So I got to put some graphics, make it look nice for you guys. But welcome to Treadmill Talks is me just talking football as I walk on the treadmill for 30, 40 minutes. So thanks for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe. Drop me a follow on Twitter at the DUnit13. If you got a comment about a player or a situation or a trade, throw it in the comments. I'd love to answer your comments. That'd be cool. Throw me a thumbs up on YouTube. Appreciate all the feedback. I don't do this for anything other than I like talking football. I want to try to lose some weight, so I want to walk on the treadmill, and hope you guys enjoy it. So thanks for tuning in. I'll be doing this for, it's been 10 minutes now. I'll probably do it for another 30 minutes or so. So yeah, drop your comments. If you got a trade question, you got a prospect question, you got a life question, a football question, whatever it is, drop it in the comments. Love to answer it for you. So I think the draft's going to be interesting. I went to the draft last year in Kansas City. I've been a big draft fan. I've always said that I think the draft is the best sporting event ever, like in all of sports. All 32 teams are interested. The draft can really make or break your franchise for 5 years, 10 years, give or take, right? If you pick the wrong guy, that may set you back 5 years, especially at quarterback. If you pick the right guy, kind of sets you up for 10 years, no matter what position. So if you take the right offensive tackle and you get a David Bakhtiari, who just retired, or from the Packers, you have a guy set for 10 years. If you draft a running back, you might get set for 5-6 years. Draft a wide receiver, if you draft Mike Evans, you're set at that position for a long time. It allows you to maneuver and do other things. If you get it wrong, though, it sets you back quite a bit. Even if you just get it marginally wrong, you're kind of stuck. I mean, look at the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence was the presumptive number 1 overall pick. Generational talent, has come out and been good, not great. And I've always said that I think Trevor Lawrence is that. He's good, not great. He's a 12 to 17 range quarterback. I think he's more in that 15 to 17 range. But does that help the Jaguars or hurt the Jaguars? Can the Jaguars really make a run with Trevor Lawrence? They only got to pay him a ton of money in 2 years. Or do they move on? If you're just okay, you can win with just a good quarterback. You have to have a really good defense and good skill positions around them. Jaguars are trying to figure that out. Obviously, they brought in Gabe Davis. Calvin Ridley last year that didn't work out. So Evan Ingram has worked out. Coaching matters. So that's why I love the draft, because you just never know. And we as analysts just kind of go, yeah, this guy's good, this guy's bad. These are the metrics. This is why we like the guy. This is why we don't like this guy. And we're right and wrong just as much as everyone else. I mean, we're never going to be 100% right. Your GM for your team is never going to be 100% right. I think for me, it's about process. When I look at things like, why does the team need that player? So take the Bills last year. I thought Dalton Kincaid was a great player. Didn't think the Bills needed him. They had Dawson Knox, who's serviceable. They went best player available instead of filling some needs. So we'll see. Every GM does things differently. So that's why I love the draft. It's just a fun event. So like I said, I spent probably 8 hours yesterday working on my mock draft version 3. I really get into it. I'll tell you honestly, I have a spreadsheet that I have all my different versions. Team needs. I think when we look at mock drafts, I think one of the things that analysts and people who do mock drafts fall into is this concept of my team or my players. So if you're really big on Keon Coleman, maybe he goes earlier than he really should because you like him. I also think we all have biases. I'm a Bills fan, so obviously I'm going to hope the Bills get a good receiver, but I really try to detach myself from that and look at each pick individually, what that team needs, and if they want to trade out, who wants to trade up, and what do those teams need? So I think part of it is we get stuck with, listen, I use PFF. I love their site. I love their tools. But some of their team needs have not been updated since free agency. So it may say, hey, Bears need a wide receiver. Do the Bears still need a wide receiver? They have DJ Moore and they traded for Keenan Allen. Yes, they may need a wide receiver, but is it a top 2 need? Probably not at this point. So they have it updated. So I have a spreadsheet where I have the PFF needs, mock draft database. I kind of pull needs from other sites and kind of get a good list and then go through free agency. And then we look at offensive linemen. They go, well, this team needs a tackle. Well, do they need a right tackle or a left tackle? And have they addressed that? And in what ways did they address it? Did they just sign a veteran? Take the Lions, sign Kevin Zeitler or Zeitler. Good tackle or guard, but old. They probably still need to draft a guy to be behind him, but they can draft a more raw prospect, perhaps, and let him sit for a year and learn. So that's what I try to look at it. So anytime I look at who's trading back, I try to like who's trading up from for what. So I'll give you a little preview of my article. I noticed this trend looking at the past 3-4 drafts of what I call self-jumping, where teams will move up 1 or 2 picks to jump themselves. So we saw it last year. Eagles moved with the Bears from 10 to 9. Well, why? Not because they felt like they had to. They felt like they had to because they were afraid someone else was going to trade with the Bears. So the Eagles were afraid that another team was going to jump them to take their player. So the Eagles have to jump themselves to get their player. So that's where this trade market comes in. So I'm calling it self-jumping, where these teams jump themselves to move up 1 or 2 spots generally trade like a 4th round, 3rd round pick, depending on where they fall in the draft. Not a huge, like they don't have to give up a ton to do it, so they can just move up a couple spots, secure their guy, and get it. Sometimes it's a matter of positional scarcity. So maybe there's one tight end available or one offensive line that they have in a tier, and they go, this is how we want. If we don't move, we run the risk of someone else moving up and taking them. Or it's just fit. They go, hey, there's 3 tackles left, but only one's a left tackle. We need a left tackle, but so does this other team that's 2 picks behind us. Maybe they trade up, so let's just do it and get our guy. So this notion of self-jumping, I think in my latest one I have 7 trades. It's about on par. I think we had 7 last year, 9 the year before, I think 5 the year before that. So we see a lot of trades, not always these big trades. Since Trey Lance got drafted and traded up, formally traded all those picks to move up, we haven't seen these big swings of guys moving from the teens to the top 5, or we haven't seen these teams really move from the 20s to the 7, 8, 9, 10 range. We see a couple people move up from 10, 11, 12 to 15, move up to 5, 6, 7. We're not seeing these big swings where people are going, man, I'm 12 and I got to get to 2. We're not seeing the big, I'm 21st and I'm going to move up to 9. Like, we just don't see those big swings. The price is just so costly. Realistically, to move up, if you look at the trades that have happened, if I think Minnesota is going to move up, and let's say I have moving up to 4 with Arizona, they're going to have to give up 11, 23, probably a 3rd next year, and probably a 4th this year to move up. That's on par with what Houston gave up to Arizona, which was a 1st, a 1st, a 3rd, and a 3rd last year. Obviously, they gave up a 1st and a 3rd in 23, and a 1st and a 3rd in 24. I think you give up a 1st and a 1st and a 4th this year and a 3rd next year. I think that gets it done. I think having the picks this year weighs a little more than picks, next year type deal. When we talk about pick values, there is a pick value trading chart. So Jimmy Johnson, former coach of the Cowboys, came with this pick value trading chart. Back in the 90s, basically assigns like the first picks worth $3,000, and they drop incrementally down there. And eventually, like a 7th round pick's worth 2 points. If you look at the trades that have happened, they're all kind of in the same vein of the higher you want to move up, the more premium you have to pay. So if I want to move to 1, that's worth $3,000, just like you do in fantasy. I can't give you 3,000 point picks for that. I have to give you 3,800, 3,900, 4,000 to move up 3 because the volume of picks moves up. There is a newer one that Bill Belichick has said the teams use, but if you look at the recent trades, it looks like they're still using some variation of the Jimmy Johnson one. There's 2 or 3 out there you can find online. I do look at that when I'm doing trades, so I had my computer open. I had probably 8 tabs open. I had the last 3 drafts, all the first-round trades, pick value trading chart. I have a spreadsheet that shows all the trades that have happened in the first round, roughly what their values are. So it kind of gets a little wonky when you start talking next year's picks. How do they value them? I value next year's picks at the middle of the round. So middle of the first round, I think, is 1,500 points or something along those lines. That's how I value it. Players is where it gets wonky. How much is a player value versus a pick? So when you trade Sam Howell for Sam Howell in a 4th for a 2nd round pick or whatever it is, becomes this wonky, like how much is Sam Howell actually worth? You trade Justin Fields for a 6th round pick that could become a 4th. Are you really saying Justin Fields is worth maybe a 5th round pick? Gets a little wonky, so you got to do your best guess. So I do keep track of all those. I try to make my mock drafts as realistic as possibly can. I'm not just making trades because I want trades, because trades are fun, especially in the draft. But here's the problem. When you're doing a mock draft, one trade makes this alternate universe of what could happen. If that trade doesn't happen, things break out somewhat differently. Usually in tiers, usually in a maybe a 5 to 10 pick gap. There's usually some hallmarks in my draft where it's like, hey, here's a tier of players, and I think they all go in this tier in some variation or another, depending on how the trades break down. But I think you definitely have to look at it. So I actually have a spreadsheet, and I call it the multiverse of mocks, of a baseline of no trades. And as I do trades, every trade I do multiple variations of. If they trade this, it goes this way. If they don't trade it, it goes this way until you get the next trade, and that makes more permutations. I know, I'm a spreadsheet nut, but let's see. Do you have an accent? I don't think I have an accent. This is from Sved. I'm originally from Philadelphia area. I live in Wisconsin now, so I don't think I have an accent, but maybe I do. You might also be hearing the treadmill kind of humming, but I don't think I have an accent, Sped. So thanks for asking. Got any other questions? If you guys are watching, have a question, drop it in the comments. Love to answer your questions. Just on the treadmill talking football for another 20 minutes or so. But so yeah, that's my process with mock drafts. I really enjoy doing them. I do a competition with my buddies every year. Do one with my one friend where we get points based on if you get the pick right, if you get the position right, you get the team to play or player to spot. If you correctly pick trades, and we usually do dinner. And then me and my buddies from Front Office Pros, we did it last year, and we bet dinner, and I ended up having to pay out. I was the lowest scoring one, so I bought dinner at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. So it's just a fun thing to do with your friends. If you are into the draft, I recommend doing it. Like, make a mock draft, make some sort of scoring system, and bet with your friends. It's just a fun way of doing it. So yeah, I think this draft's going to be interesting. Fantasy-wise, there's a lot of fantasy-relevant players, especially on wide receiver. I think we see 4 quarterbacks, probably 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end. So you're talking at 9, maybe 10 fantasy-relevant players go in the first round. That's a lot. Now, I don't play IDP, and I know a lot of you do, and there's a lot of IDP players out there that are, clamoring for this draft because there's going to be some good players. I also think we undervaluate offensive linemen at times, especially when it comes to fantasy. The team that gets Joe Alt, who is the best, in my opinion, I think most people are the best offensive lineman in the draft. What's he really good at? Is he really good pass blocking? Is he really good at run blocking? Both. What does that mean for the team? So, and same thing with free agency. When you see a team go out and sign 2 offensive linemen who are really good at run blocking, maybe that shows you that the team really wants to run the ball. Or conversely, if they sign pass blocking linemen who are really excel at that, maybe that's a sign they really want to throw the ball more. So I think you can get a glimpse into what teams are doing based on their findings with offensive linemen. Obviously, playing fantasy with offensive linemen doesn't really exist currently. So I think that's an interesting thing, but I think you can definitely look at it and go, hey, this guy's really good at that. And if you don't know what they're good at, I really like PFF and get their player grades. I know people talk about their player grades. J.J. Watt doesn't like them, but I think it's a good number, right? Whether it's right or wrong, I don't think it's wrong. I think it's skewed, but you can go, hey, this is where it's roughly where it's at. Now, they may say this guy's really good at pass blocking. He might just be okay, but maybe I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they say this guy's really good at pass blocking, and he's just not. He might not be as good as they make him out to be, or might be better than they make him out to be, but I still think it gives you a general glimpse into their skill set. So look at that. This is Treadmill Talks Week 2. Walking on the treadmill, talking football. Hit that like and subscribe for Dynasty Pros Football. YouTube, drop a comment on YouTube. I'd love to answer your questions. If you got questions if I have an accent, or if you got questions about a prospect or a trade in your league, or any sort of football stuff, let me know. Happy to answer your questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I love talking football, so I'm doing these treadmill talks every Sunday, right around this time, 12:30 Central Time, which is where I'm at. Just kind of a way of me getting on treadmill, kind of motivate me, get on the treadmill, maybe lose a little weight, but talk football with you guys for 30, 40 minutes. So doing it for 20 minutes. I've walked, 0.71 of a mile, I guess. I usually try to walk a mile and a half, on half an hour, which isn't bad. I'm going about the speed of 2 miles per hour. I jumped up to 2.2. Walking, I can do 2.3. I could probably do a 3 walking, but it gets a little, the foot pounding. I want the sound to be good for you guys. So, yeah, I'm excited for the draft. It's in Detroit this year, end of April. I think it's going to be fun. I should be headed out there. That's the plan. Go out there, cover it. My dad's family's from Detroit, so I'm excited to see my cousin. I'm going to stay with her and her husband and just be around fans. The draft is a really cool experience. If you're local and you want to go, I recommend going. I think it's a fun experience to be in the crowd of 100, 150,000 people, depending on the night. I think that's always cool to do. So if you like football, it's fun. You see people in their full fan get up, all the crazy costumes and outfits. You see jerseys of every team. You see jerseys of players that you forgot about from back in the day. Yes, I'm a football freak. That's what we call soccer. No, I'm like American football, not soccer. Sorry. I'm in America. I can't get into football or soccer. It's just soccer to me is just kind of I don't know. I won't say boring. It's just uneventful enough for me to really sit down and watch it. So And I like games where they're scoring. I like when we have winners. A lot of times soccer ends in a tie. So I'm a football and hockey guy, American football and hockey. But my son's really into soccer. He's a Man City. I think that's the blue ones. He's their fan of Holland. So he likes them. I'm an American football guy. I'm a Bills fan. Like I said, I cover all NFL and fantasy. So what I do is a side job. It's my passion. It's something I really love doing, love talking. So that's why I got on the treadmill. Try to motivate myself to get on here more every Sunday. Walk a mile, mile and a half. Talk football with you guys. So if you got comments, drop them in the YouTube comments. Hit that like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys joining in and listening to me ramble about football for 30, 40 minutes. So appreciate you guys dropping in. So yeah, draft's going to be fun. Interesting draft class. I think what will happen is for fantasy, we will see second and third rounds, a lot of fantasy relevant pieces. Wide receivers, running backs, a couple tight ends, maybe a quarterback or two. And the wide receiver class is deep, so when we talk about trades, I don't see a need for teams to really slide up to get a wide receiver. If you're like, hey, I really like Xavier Worthy, yeah, he's fast. There's other fast-ish guys, obviously not as fast. If you're like, hey, I really like Adonai Mitchell, do you want to trade up to get Adonai Mitchell, or can you just wait and get a Troy Franklin or a Keon Coleman? If you really like someone like a Lad McConkey, can you wait and get someone similar? I think that's possible. What are your views on Neymar? I don't know much about Neymar, Sped, or Syed, or however you say your name, sorry. I know he's a soccer player. I know he's controversial. I don't really know much about Neymar, but let's talk American football. So I think what we'll see for fantasies, we'll see a lot of these guys late. And everyone's trying to find the next, like, Puka Nacua. Let's face it, very few people no one saw the year coming for Puka that he had. I think there's people out there like myself, Jay Felicio, who were talking Puka post-draft, liked his landing spot, liked what he could be, saw the role in that offense. Obviously, we didn't expect as good a year. We thought he was a good flyer late. Same thing with Tank Dell. I think people saw Tank Dell land with Houston and said, okay, he's going to have opportunity. If C.J. Stroud is good, maybe Tank Dell can be good. Obviously, C.J. Dell came out and was really good. Obviously, we saw Tank Dell be really good. So I think we'll see that. For me, we talk a lot about, players and prospects. For me, it's a lot about landing spots. So we'll see. Ramsaholic, what's up, my man? 107 and 108. Who is the ideal guy that you would want in rookie drafts? So if I'm looking at 107 and 108, I'm assuming we're going to say Superflex. And let me know if it's Superflex or not. Appreciate the question. So Superflex, you probably got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors for the top 6. So 7, if you can get Rome Odunze, depending on landing spot, that's what I like. Brock Bowers will be interesting there. Depends on where he goes. I definitely have an interesting landing spot in coming up in my mock draft. I think a lot of people have him projected to go to the Jets. Wouldn't love Brock Bowers, honestly, at 7 or 8 if he went to the Jets. Just not a scheme that uses the tight end. We know Aaron Rodgers traditionally hasn't used the tight end. No, he hasn't had an amazing tight end like a Brock Bowers. So we'll see. I know Coupe Fiasco. Yes, it is Superflex. I know Andrew Cooper, Coupe Fiasco on Twitter, the tight end whisperer, keeps saying, Brock Bowers, if he could go. I want to say he wants him to go to the Chargers. I know he's got a crazy landing spot in the top where he would go there and Greg Roman's offense. I don't think that happens either. So I have an interesting spot. So I think 7 or 8, I'm looking at Rome Odunze. And whoever goes to the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs will take a guy at the end of the first round. And then if Buffalo takes a big receiver, an Adonai Mitchell, a Keon Coleman, a Troy Franklin in the first or second, I'm looking at them at the 107, 108 because I think the volume is going to be there. I'm not a Curtis Samuel believer, so I think they inherit Gabe Davis's volume plus because I think they're going to be the bigger receiver, maybe a little more red zone work. So that's what I'm looking at 108. And then we'll see what running backs happen. Running back that goes to Dallas, running backs that goes to the Chargers are the 2 I'm looking at. And they might sneak into the 108, 109 for me if we're talking about that. I think that's where it falls. So I'm going to go top 6 would be 4 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. The top 2 wide receivers, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors. So at 7, you're looking at Rome Odunze, who's the 3rd best wide receiver. Possibly Brian Thomas, depends on where he goes. Maybe Brock Bowers. And then whoever goes probably to the Bills or the Chiefs would be my guys there. Landing spot's really going to matter there for these guys. I got to reset my treadmill here. For some reason it shuts off on me. But that's what I'm looking at. Thanks for the question. If you guys have questions, drop them in there. Love talking football with you guys. You know, answering your questions, talking prospects. We can talk free agency if you want. We can talk whatever you guys want. So if you guys have questions, drop them in there. Appreciate the question. But if I am drafting right now, or I have not drafting, but I have my picks, and I'm in the 106, 107, I might actually look to trade back. If you could theoretically trade, let's say in a 10 team, you could trade 107 for 110 and maybe get the 203. I think you're going to get the same tier of player to me. So I'm okay moving back, but you're going to stay in that tier because I think that second tier outside of the top 6 to me is that tier break. 7 is the start of the tier. So if I can pick up 2 picks in that tier, which might be 7, 8, 9, 10, 201, 202, 203, maybe even 204, I might move back a little bit from the 107, 108, one of those picks, move back, 12 team you're talking, 112 to 202 maybe. Depends on how it shakes out. But I think that second tier is going to be big. And even if you can pick up, maybe let's say you move 107 for 111 if you're in a 12 team, and 202, maybe you pick up a 302. I'm okay with that too. Now, depends on what your teams have. If they have the 111, they're probably not going to have the 202, but you never know. There's lots of pick traded. Maybe you can trade back and get a 1 and a 2 maybe next year. I don't know if I'd do that, but that's possible. So that's where I'm at with the 107, 108. I think it's the start of that second tier of players for me. Right now, I think my first tier is those 6 guys based on where I think they're going to go. So I think we see maybe that tier goes to 7. Maybe I hold on 7, maybe trade 108. But for me, that first tier is the top 6 guys. That second tier probably is 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. So I think probably 7 or 8 guys, maybe 10 guys in that second tier. So you can move back in the tier and pick up a guy, maybe a second pick in that tier, or move up in that third tier, be one of the top guys there. I'm okay with that too. So still real early. I think what happens with draft player, prognostication is we have one piece of the puzzle, which is their college stats. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. We have this blue piece of puzzle piece. It's solid blue. I think some people are going, oh, it's the ocean, and some people are going, no, it's the sky. And it might just be a blueberry, and we just don't know yet. And then we get the second piece of the puzzle, which is the combine, their measurables, their workouts. We go, okay, here's their measurable workouts and RES score, and here's what it did with their combine, and here's their, blah, 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 their proficiency and athletic scores. And now we have 2 blue pieces together. And we go, okay, it's not a blueberry. It's the sky. It's the ocean. We still don't know. I think the third piece and fourth piece we get our landing spot, draft capital. I think draft capital matters. I think some people get way too into just strictly draft capital. I think that's the third piece. And I think fit on a team is the fourth piece. And that's where we get this puzzle. And then we can see, okay, maybe it is the sky. Maybe it is the ocean. That's what we finally know. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but maybe you want to have a balance of sky and ocean. So I think the problem is that we get too locked into one thing. I think people get locked into too much of analyticals, too much into draft capital. They get too much into measurables and college stats. Some people get too into fit. You can be let's face it, we know Kansas City has needed a wide receiver, and they signed Sky Moore. Everybody goes, but the fit. They need a guy. Yeah, but the skill wasn't there, and the health wasn't there. So that's why it didn't work. So I think that's a thing. So thanks for hopping on Treadmill Talks. They're probably 15, 20 minutes. Hit a like or subscribe there on YouTube. Dynasty Pros Football. Follow me on Twitter. We're doing these every Sunday, right around this time, 12:30 Central. It's 1:30 Eastern. If you got a comment, drop it on the YouTube. Love to answer your questions, whether it's about a prospect, a trade, pretty much anything football related. Are you a Democrat or Republican? Not going to answer that. I'm pretty much independent. Try to keep it on American football, but appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. Just doing this for fun, trying to motivate myself to get on the treadmill, lose a little weight, and talk football with you guys. So that's where I'm at with prospect ratings. I think don't want to be take locked or locked into one system, and I want to have a holistic approach. I want to look at their measurables. I want to look at their college stats. I want to look at their fit in college. Why did a guy transfer? Was it opportunity? Was it a coach left? What caused that? Why did they have one good year and 2 bad years? Why did they have 2 good years and then a bad year? Was there injuries? What happened? Where did they get drafted? Is a first-round pick better than a second-round pick? Probably, just on pure athleticism. But a second-round pick can outperform a first-round pick because of the fit and the scheme and all that stuff. And then we talk about the intangibles of work ethic and mental capacities and all those sort of things we've seen. Obviously, first-round picks, Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, who first-round picks who just didn't have the work ethic and flamed out. How old are you? I'm 41 years old. So I've been doing football stuff for 3 years now. So just trying to lose some weight and talk football with you guys. So I think that's where we're at. We just got to look at it. So I said this on a stream during the combine. There's 4 things I want to know from a player. I want to know their physical ability. Like, do they have the size, the speed, the NFL traits we're looking for from a physical aspect? Did they produce on the field? That's part of it. I want to look at their heart. Like, are they passionate about the game? Talking to some of these prospects, I didn't see a huge passion for the game, which bothered me. Does that cause more issues down the road? So what's their heart look like? Do they, when you talk to them about football, do they love talking football? They're just like, hey, this is what I do to make money. Is it a job for them? Is it a passion? I want to know the mental capacity of them. Football IQ, that's a buzz phrase we hear during the draft, but that's something that's true. Do they understand football? When we talk about guys who say, oh, the playbook looked like Spanish. Do they understand concepts, especially if you go to a team that has a difficult concept to learn? Are they not dumb, but are they smart enough to pick that up quickly? It takes some guys a little longer, and that's fine. That's how we learn. But I need to know that. I need to know if they can pick things up, if they know what to do when the audible gets called or the 2-minute drill. The guy that slides down on the 1 instead of scoring because that's a smart football play, or they're just trying to score because they want the numbers and the stats. And then I look at the opportunities. What are they given? What is the player given in terms of snaps, targets, potential targets and snaps? So when I look at players, whether that's rookies or free agents, whoever, what's their pathway to opportunity? If Brock Bowers goes to Baltimore, what's the pathway to opportunity for him? Probably pretty slim. He's got to beat out Isaiah Likely for the number 2 job. And he's got to try to beat out Mark Andrews for targets. Probably not going to happen, right? If Brock Bowers goes to Minnesota, he's probably not beating out T.J. Hockenson. So pathway to opportunity, even some of these other guys, if Cade Stover goes to Minnesota, or let's say Cade Stover goes to Detroit, I think he fits mentally and heart and the passion for what Dan Campbell does, that kind of grit, determination. I think he fits that, but opportunities, what is he given? I'm not sure he's given a lot behind Sam Laporta. So that's what matters to me. I'm looking at all 4 of those things. And when we see all 4 of those things line up, I think that's where we see greatness. Look at Kurt Warner. Physically talented, wasn't overly talented, but enough. Clearly had the passion, the heart, clearly had the brains for it. When he finally got the opportunities, that's where we saw him take off. Look at Brock Purdy. People talk about why Brock Purdy was missed on. Let's just face it. People didn't talk to him. Talked about this last week. They get 30 visits at the combine, 40 post-combine, so you can really talk to 70 players at most. You're probably doubling up on some of those. Year before, Brock Purdy was talked about as a top 3 quarterback in college. Went back another year. Obviously fell on the list. Brock Purdy clearly had the physical giftings. Seems like he's got the mental giftings. Seems like he has the passion for it to still come out and play and work and practice, even though he was a 3rd stringer, Mr. Irrelevant. And when he was finally given the opportunity, we've seen Brock Purdy be really good with it. So, no, I wasn't drafting Brock Purdy because for me, pathway to opportunity wasn't there for Brock Purdy. Because I looked at him and go, okay, yeah, he's physically gifted and he seems to be smart, but he's got to go through Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo to get a starting job. Don't think it's going to happen. So I didn't draft Brock Purdy. No one did because we didn't see the pathway for opportunity there. Obviously, we saw that things change, right? Injuries, poor play, he gets a shot, takes over. And we're always going to miss on those guys. We just don't know. And that's where I think being able to pivot definitely helps you in your process. So all of a sudden, Trey Lance gets hurt. Well, okay, Brock Purdy's now the 2. Maybe we scoop him up because we know Jimmy Garoppolo is injury prone, even though we don't like to say that. So I think that's where I look at things. So yeah, I'm it's about 40 minutes now. I'll go for another 10 minutes or so. Finish up this lap, I think, on my treadmill. If you got questions, drop them in the YouTube chat. Hit like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Treadmill Talks, just me walking on the treadmill talking football every Sunday around this time. So if you hit like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. You get notifications when we go live. But this is when I do it. It's on Dynasty Pros YouTube, Dynasty Pros Twitter, my Twitter. But if you throw us a like and subscribe, a thumbs up, We appreciate it on YouTube. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel, trying to do some content for you guys. This is obviously nothing fancy, right? This is just me walking on a treadmill. I don't have guests. I don't have my microphone. I'm sweating a little bit, drinking water, just trying to be authentically here for you guys, talking about the game I love that we all love. So drop questions if you got them on YouTube. So yeah, I'm excited for it. Like I said, I did my version 3 of my mock draft. Versions 1 and 2 are on my Twitter. Version 3 will come out on Dynasty Bros Football as an article, kind of give you some of the why behind each pick, because I think that's important when we talk about picks. Why does Minnesota move up? Why does Washington take Jaden Daniels or Drake May over the other? Why do certain teams do what they do? I think is important. Why do we see these, what I call self-jumps, where we see teams move up one spot to jump themselves because they're afraid someone else might jump up? Well, who is it? I'm just not going to make a trade and go, well, I think the Bills move up one spot because they were afraid someone jumped over them. Well, who are they afraid is going to jump over them? And we'll look at, like, why would a team move up? Does it make sense? Because I may go, the Bills want to move up to get a receiver. Do they need to move up to get a receiver? Well, Baltimore needs a receiver. Yeah, but does Baltimore have the draft capital to move up? So I try to look at all those things and try to give you a little breakdown of why I think the pick happens that way. And I also try to throw in, like, hey, I think it could be this or that. I think it's going to be this, but I think there's a 40% chance or a 30% chance it's that. I'm going to be wrong on some of them. Like, this is also not my final one. And even if it was, I'll be wrong. I'm always wrong. We are always wrong. Everyone's always wrong. We just don't know. We're not in the rooms. But we do our best to try to predict what's what. And like I said, I took probably 8 hours yesterday. Chilled Saturday. Did a little in the morning. Did a little at night. Finished it up. Looked at my process for the previous versions. Again, try to give you the best mock draft I can with some reasoning why and give you the process. So that's what we're looking at. So thanks for tuning in on YouTube Live or on Twitter. Drop us a like and follow. Treadmill Talks finishing up here for this week. Next week is Easter. I will be doing it on Easter. If you're an American, you celebrate Easter, I will be doing it. It's 40 minutes. I think getting a routine of getting on the treadmill every week, walking. Thought about maybe adding a second night, maybe doing a Wednesday. I know a lot of people do live streams on Wednesdays, so might be competing. But maybe I'll do something a little earlier in the day. Maybe I'll do it right after work. A Wednesday at, I don't know. Would you guys want to see a Wednesday at 4 o'clock Central Time? 5 Eastern? Hop on for half an hour? Let me know. Drop a comment. Send me a DM. Whatever. If you guys want to see it, I thought maybe adding a second day might not be bad for my health, but also lets me talk football. But if I'm going to do it, I need you guys to drop some comments. Give me some more to talk about. I can only talk about prospects on my own for so long. But we're at like 43 minutes. I'm going to run for 2 minutes more, get a nice 45 in. Get a good little sweat going. You know, I'm not burning a ton of calories. I'm burning some, but, you know, it's enough to keep me active. Hopefully drop a little bit of weight here and there. So, like I said, love talking football. I've been doing football content for 3.5 years, writing articles, doing podcasts. I don't do my own podcast, but if you have a podcast and want me on as a guest, love to hop on. If you have me on a guest, I won't come on the treadmill unless you want me to. I'll go down to my studio downstairs and look nicer for you. So I'm excited for the draft. What are you guys excited for? What do you want your team to do in the draft? Who is your favorite team, and what do you want them to do? Do you want them to take wide receiver, quarterback, offensive lineman? And then what's going to be your favorite fantasy landing spot? Who are you excited for to see where they go? Is there a prospect out there? Xavier Worthy, a Bud Means, Dylan Lobby. Is there a prospect that you're curious to see where they go? And if they go to the right landing spot, you might be more in on than you would if they went elsewhere. So who's that prospect you're really looking to see where they go? What do you want your favorite team to do? Drop it in the comments. See me you're watching after the fact. Love to hear that. I'll try to follow up some comments, but love to hear your thoughts on the rookies. How many quarterbacks do you guys think go in the first round? Do you think it's going to be 4? Do we see a 5th? When do we see the first running back, and how many running backs are in the second round? I think we'll see 3, possibly 4, maybe 2. I'm going to go hedge my bet with 3. But how many running backs do you guys see in the second round? Let me know. Drop it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in this week. Treadmill Talks. Dustin here talking football. Like I said, hit a like and subscribe. Dynasty Bros Football YouTube. Hit the notifications so you see when we go live. And drop a comment. If not, I will see you guys next time.